Hi, friends. This is game two from my Vegas National Open tournament. This was played the same day that I played the first game. So the games at that day were 12 p.m. start for the first one, and then I believe a 6:30 p.m. start for the second game. The first game didn't last too long. Luckily, this game I could share some stories of what I was doing the night before, but needless to say, I'm already trying to make excuses. But let me just show you the games. So I had the black pieces this time, first game in the tournament that I play with the black pieces, and I told my friend that I was staying with, I hope that they don't play d4. So sure enough, my opponent starts with the move d4. So yeah, you guys see how I play against d4. I just wasn't ready for it, and it's like you should be ready with uh, you know, one of the two most common openings in all of chess. But yeah, I'm not gonna come up with any more excuses. But let's just get into this game. D4, knight f6. All right, not too bad of a start. Here they go knight f3. So they don't play the London, which is here. Not that it would have changed how I played here, but just d5. Here they go e3, so they kind of block in their dark square bishop. And I go bishop f5. So yeah, this is really a regret that I have now, but a mistake that I learned from. This honestly isn't that bad right now, or it doesn't seem that bad, but it's not good. And I think that I just like shouldn't do this anymore ever. So you'll see what happens to me. They strike immediately with c4. This does two things. It strikes at my center with the pawn, and it also opens up this diagonal for the queen. So I just support this pawn with my other pawn, also lock in the bishop outside the chain, and get ready to bring my other bishop out. Seems reasonable. Queen b3, immediately hitting b7. B7 would be defended by the bishop on c8 if the bishop was still on c8. Unfortunately, there's no bishop on c8 because it's now on f5. So I just decided to defend the pawn with the move b6. So doesn't seem great for me. It looks like a fianchetto, but there's no bishop home. So these squares are actually really weak. It doesn't look like white can really take advantage of that right now. But my opponent played this really well, and you'll see how they do it. By the way, my opponent was no older than my last opponent. They were both under the age of 10. I mean, I don't know their age exactly, but I could tell you they're both under the age of 10. Very young children. But yeah, let's see. He just develops his knight, more pressure on d5. Bishop e7, just trying to get castled. Knight into e5, castles. Bishop to e2. And this looks like they're just trying to castle, but combined with the knight moving, this really is clearing the way for the bishop to come to f3. Lots of pressure on d5. And also this rook hanging at the end of the long diagonal is going to be a juicy snack for this bishop as soon as this opens. So as soon as this bishop moved, I thought to myself, maybe if I take this pawn, the bishop will move a second time. But boy, was I wrong. I take and the queen takes. So yeah, I've just completely opened this diagonal, put the queen a little closer to the center, putting even more pressure on these light squares. And I'm kind of in a pickle here. I have to play knight f to d7. And the idea is that like this is happening. So if I try to contest this knight here, maybe there's like knight here or something, and that's a fork on the queen and the bishop. So I have to save the bishop, but my knight's here. So that means I only have one move, e8. And after takes, with my knight here, that'll drop this pawn, and that doesn't seem very fun for me. Maybe I can go rook here. That'll drop another pawn. And there's really nothing at the end of the c file for my rook to capitalize on. So yeah, I just didn't want to do this. Obviously, these squares are off limits to the knights because of this, and uh, yeah. So I just brought this knight backwards to attack this knight because this knight is covering these light squares, and I want to make sure that I can meet this somehow and not lose an exchange immediately. Although honestly, a bishop for rook here might not be that bad if white had played a move like g3, but they have not, so wasn't really trying to calculate an exchange sacrifice here before move 10. But yeah, knight f to d7 just holds for a little bit longer because after bishop here attacking the rook, I can take this knight hitting the queen, and after they react, maybe then I'll have like c6 and give up a pawn, but I survive. Maybe I had something else there. I'm not entirely sure, but this was the plan for now. They take here, and again, I could take with this knight. Maybe that was better. I don't know why I didn't. But I take with queen here, and sure enough, they attack the rook. I have c6 just in the nick of time, but it's still not really good. My knight is still struggling to find a home, and they just simply castle. I attack the queen. Queen goes back here, and now I bring the knight out finally. So it looks like I'm holding on. Like, it's not terrible, but it's honestly not great. They attack my bishop, they take the center, and they develop their last piece. Rook's connected for both sides, but white has a dominating position in the center. My knight's super awkward. All my pieces really are kind of awkward. I get the rook off the diagonal and just try to support this backward c6 pawn. It's really hard for me to choose a pawn break here because my opponent is just controlling the center so well. And now it's time for them to bring in their rooks as well. So knight on a6 wasn't really doing anything, so I go back to c7. They go rook to c1. And here I try to take some space on the queen side and maybe stir up some amount of trouble. They go a3, a4, and now queen a2. So this is actually really passive for white because their only moves now are to go backwards, which are not great either, especially considering that this move only has like that's one square to go to. It's still blocked by this pawn, and this move puts it opposite my bishop, which is less than ideal. So it's like the position is honestly not that bad, but how I played it was that bad. So yeah, here probably 98, some sort of reroute of the knight. I was just worried about this pawn break at some point, so I bring the rook over. They play here, and I go bishop to f6, maybe trying to mount some pressure here. It doesn't really amount to anything though, and in fact, it sets me up for this tactic. So they go knight backwards, and I don't know if you guys see the threat, but white has a big threat here, and I did not address it at all. I did not even really recognize it. I just wasn't in this game. I was not thinking. I played queen e8. So for those of you that found the threat is to simply open this bishop up, attack my bishop, and yeah, that's the whole point behind knight e2 is to open up this rook attacking c6. So here, best move for me is to not allow this bishop to open up and just play a move like e5 myself, which is actually kind of weird because e5 pawn takes. It wants me to give up the queen for the two rooks and take back this pawn with check, which is a lot better than what I did in the game. What I did in the game was queen e8, and now their plan that they'd been working on, e5, works like a charm, and it actually threw me off so bad that I was like, I don't know how I didn't see that. I don't know what I'm thinking right now. It got even worse. So I let a bad situation get even worse. Like, I should have just saved the bishop. Bishop e7 seems pretty reasonable. Allow bishop takes, and now I have to go queen f8. Pretty bad. This is a pretty bad position. But what I did was actually a lot worse. In my mind, I thought, okay, bishop e7, bishop takes, queen here, and then bishop takes and bishop takes. Like, I can't stop this. That was my reasoning, my thought process. And I don't know why. I forgot that the knight was defending b5. It just, like, didn't occur to me. Like, I was like, okay, once the c6 pawn falls, this entire pawn chain will fall. And this bishop will go into Pac-Man mode. And I just can't save a4. And then these pawns are going to steamroll the queen side. And I'm just going to lose this game immediately. So yeah, maybe I was gonna lose the game, but it wouldn't have been immediately. But it became a lot faster after this next move. I played knight into d5. So I was like, okay, finally this pawn has moved. He's giving me the d5 square. I'm going to sacrifice my bishop, open up the g file, put my rooks on the g file, and get some counterplay with my bishop or something. That was what went through my head at that moment in time. I thought it was better to give up a piece for a pawn than to give up all these pawns. But I realized afterwards that I wasn't giving up all the pawns, just one of them. But it still would have been a really rough and tough game for me. But of course, I didn't make life easier on myself. I just sacrificed this knight or this bishop, and not taking with this, maybe something that I should have done, reserving my king pawn structure. I take with the pawn because I'm like, well, I need some counterplay, and that to me meant opening the g file. Unfortunately, they take here, and I was not going to allow this knight coming in, trading off these pieces, because obviously I would want to save the rook, and taking here would close the g file that I had worked so hard on opening. So of course I take with the e pawn to reserve this pawn structure, not open the c file and allow rook trades. But now I have double isetted f pawns. So they go here, attacking the bishop. I go here. That's pretty nice. Attacking that g pawn. It's helped paving the way for my heavy pieces. And they go knight h5. So this is just threatening a huge fork. I developed the queen to defend it. And now my opponent plays rook c3. This is a really nice move. Eventually anticipating the bishop to move and getting their rook onto the g file. So I just was like, I just got to continue with my plan here. But yeah, bishop here, really strong, just clearing the way for the rook. I go rook here, and I was half expecting them to just trade down here and say, they're giving up 2 pieces for the rook, but they were already up a piece, so they'd be up in exchange, basically. But yeah, I was hoping like the other rook would come in, maybe queen takes here at some point. But again, this rook is doing the Lord's work here for him on c3. But no, he was very smart. He didn't go for anything remotely of the sort to give me any sort of chances. He just brings his rook to g3. And yeah, rook takes, and I was thinking maybe pawn takes, and I could play here, attack this, and get my other rook in, and I don't know. He played really smart, just knight takes, maintaining the pawn structure, attacking my bishop again. I go rook here, hoping, I guess, knight takes, queen takes, attack this. And yeah, like at least his queen is just completely cut out of the game. Like it's been over here since a long time ago, but unfortunately his defense was too good. He pins me here, and I just try to attack his bishop, but he saves his bishop. And now I try to attack his knight. He attacks my bishop. I do attack the knight, but he takes. I take. And now my g-pawn is completely blocking my rook. The pawn is really not going any further after this. My opponent gives check. I block with the pawn. And here they take on f5, which is nice. I was thinking they would take here. And also I was thinking that this bishop would be pinned to the rook, but I forgot that the bishop could take on g3, defending the rook. But maybe that would help open up my rook at some point. But anyways, they didn't do that. They take on f5, and if I take back, it seems pretty cool, threatening this and that and this, but simply rook f1, saving everything, and in fact winning this pawn at the end. I wasn't having it, so I just go queen f7. But yeah, this game it's been long over. I'm just going through the motions to show you guys for the sake of being thorough, I suppose. But yeah, they save the bishop, queen here attacks the pawn, and finally they get their queen out of the game to defend this pawn. I attack the bishop, they defend the bishop, and here, this is my last try. It doesn't even work, but I'm saying if pawn takes, queen check, Lord knows what's happening. But it's definitely not checkmate. It definitely would not have come to anything. But my opponent trying to give me some sort of hope, trying to say that, hey, maybe this is worth considering. They go rook f1. They they basically entertained my idea of sacrificing my second to last piece here, and they just want to defend this bishop. So now this really is not working because that would be mate 1. So I leave the rook hanging for another move, but unfortunately my opponent doesn't bite for when it actually counts, but they put me in a pin, and probably my best move is like rook h4 to trade queens, but I wouldn't trade queens here. I trying to take advice from the end of my last video, try to keep on as much material as possible. But I go rook here hoping for bishop takes so that I could take back with the queen, so that I could save the queen, I guess. But yeah, that just loses an exchange. So like I said, rook h4 is best because I just trade material, but I go here to save the queen, but at the cost of an exchange when I'm already down a piece. So at this point, I save the queen, but I'm down an entire rook. Threatening check, I guess, but no, they just develop the queen, attack the pawn, they block me, try to force a queen trade, I keep the queens on, and then they go rook e1. Really hard to stop this mate. So if I go here, there's all these checks and stuff. And so I was just like, you know what, all right, let's just trade queens. And then I was trying to maybe see if I can get some sort of Rosen stalemate, a Rosen trap, something. Maybe like pawn here, rook here. But I need to get rid of all my pawn moves. And I have a ton of pawns. But also, like, they're not going to stalemate me. So I played one move here. This was definitely the wrong pawn to start with. Because I'm speed running their checkmate. I should do this, and then like this one at the very end. Not that it really matters at this point, but yeah, I played c5, they took, and I resigned. So I'm not one for resigning much, but this game I was completely out of it. This position's also completely hopeless. I was wasting both of our times. But yeah, as much as I wanted to play on, see if I could work some sort of stalemate out, the chances were so low. I just gave up, honestly. I think after I saw their pawn move attacking my bishop and I sacked my knight, that was really, I mean, even before that, just missing their knight e2 move was just, it was really rough. This was a rough game for me, but it was a valuable lesson of not playing bishop f5, I think, was my main takeaway from this. So yeah, and that'll go on to help me in subsequent games. So stay tuned. This is game 2 of 6 that I ended up playing. I hope you guys enjoy this. I hope you learned something from it, because I definitely did. But yeah, maybe I'll share what we did the night before this game another time. Until then, take care of yourselves. I'll see you guys in the next one.